Welcome, Savvy Seeker, to the Spiritual Phoenix Podcast. This is your audio oasis and paranormal portal. You can experience legendary guests, thought-provoking tarot readings, astonishing astrological forecasts, and exposure to ideas intent on igniting your unlimited inspiration. Subscribe today to keep your fire burning. One last thing, you are encouraged to reach out and ask questions. Become a part of the show. Now please enjoy today's episode. Hello out there in podcast land. I hope you are well. We have the honor of having the wonderful Stefanie Caponi, the most Caponi Stefanie that ever Caponi to Caponi.
You're extra today, Ross.
I am. Lack of sleep and too much caffeine, I feel like. How are you doing today, Stefanie?
Pretty good. We're catching up to you on the caffeine front. Just made my third cup of coffee.
I've had 3 cups of coffee and 2 cups of tea by now. There's no catching me. I'm breaking the sound barrier.
Nice.
So last episode, we talked about the Empress and the Threes. What are the Stefanie Caponi key points to the Empress and the Threes?
Well, the Empress is all about that divine feminine energy. She's ruled by Venus. She's receptive. She's creative. The Threes are about collaboration and tapping into that soft, receptive energy.
Okay, very well said. Talking of collaboration, I just recorded a podcast episode. It'll be released by the time we release this episode. And I actually name dropped you and mentioned the Moon Void Tarot. You're definitely welcome. It was my honor. I kind of mentioned this project, and I'm mentioning that. So if people listening to this want to check out that podcast, it would be the Inner Bloom podcast. You can check that out as well if it tickles your fancy.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to hear.
And with that being said, do you want to get into what the Emperor means?
Absolutely, Ross. So today we're going to be talking about the Emperor and the Fours. I think the Emperor is really interesting. I know that when I first started reading tarot 100 years ago, I didn't really grasp the concept of masculine energy and feminine energy. I saw it more in terms of like the father figure, the emperor being like a man kind of controlling things. And I think that the culture's just evolved so quickly, and it's really wonderful to think of now that there's no gender association with the emperor. The Emperor is really about how the Empress, let me backtrack, how the Empress is receptive, feminine energy, divine feminine energy. I think that the Emperor is divine masculine energy, and that's that outward action, but it's taking action from a very intelligent place and not, the Emperor oversees a kingdom. And I feel like that when you're taking care of people and you're taking care of yourself and you're taking guided action, it doesn't come from like a toxic place.
I really like that explanation that you gave for it, and really looking at the cards and the color. It kind of has that like creative component to it, and there's orange that sticks right out on this, and orange definitely is the color of the sacral chakra, which is all about creativity. This is one of the cards that I've had a misconception about, honestly, up until like I kind of looked over some of the principles of it today.
I think a lot of people have misconceptions about the Emperor, and I think it's really important that we're talking about this today. I know we're just now into 2019, which is an Empress year, but next year is going to be an Emperor year. So everything that we do and all of the receptive energy that we are a part of this year is setting the tone for the actionable steps that we'll be taking next year.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to present it. And this card too is about structure and like solidity, like foundation. So we're kind of laying that foundation now, and that foundation is going to be like poured or further established next year, and then everything else will kind of be built upon that. And even looking at this card, like, it has this very, very stable feel to it. And I switched to the Rider Smith Waite tarot because I just wanted to kind of look at this stuff as we go through it and step into more of a active learning and communicating kind of what I thought phase. I thought it would be a better space for me, actually.
Nice. I agree with that.
I have a question for you, looking at the symbolism of this card, and then I'm going to ask you about your version of the Emperor. What is this yellow thing in his hand on the Rider Smith Waite? Is that like it looks like a golden taco. I know it's not a taco, but.
I mean, that would be kind of fun. What are those things, like the scepter and the, like he has a scepter in the left hand and in the right hand is whatever the other thing is. And I feel awful and put on the spot that I can't think of what it's called, but
I didn't know either. So
that kings hold. It's like,
is it like an orb or something?
Something.
Okay.
I'm not really up on my
oh no.
I don't know. I think I spent so many years considering the Rider-Waite Smith and the traditional elements of it, and then taking the time to kind of try to make it modern and applicable to the life that we're living now.
Mm-hmm.
Even though my card is actually kind of similar, and I think I didn't stray too far from the normal art, because I always had trouble with this card. You know, I, of course, have had a difficult relationship with my father and spent a long time kind of healing and just undoing, like, the patriarchy in my own existence. So on mine, there's definitely that, like, cinder block throne. Mm-hmm. And there's the mantle and the scepter and the crown, but there's no king sitting there.
Yeah, there's definitely a void there, which makes sense because it's kind of the Moon Void Tarot. And I don't mean it in like a negative way. I mean, I like how you represented it, especially given that it's your life and kind of your life experience. But it still shows that stability despite that. I think that's one of the takeaways from it. It still shows this, like, strength and structure, and all of the principles are there just without, like, that figure. And I think that that's a really cool way to present it.
Thank you. You know, what I realized was there's no figure present on the throne because the card is about taking action. And if you're taking action, you're not sitting on your ass. You're out there doing. And you don't need all the flashy things. Like, you don't need a crown, you don't need a mantle, you don't need a scepter, you don't need $1 million in the bank, you don't need a flashy car, you don't need to have, you know, a Gucci bag or whatever it is, to be out there kicking ass and taking up space. That's a huge association of the Emperor, is taking up space. And if you are just sitting on your little throne, you're not taking up that much space. You're sitting in your comfort.
I like how you present that. I've heard it said that most successful people, like highly successful people, you're not going to see them with all this bling and all this flash and stuff. And it kind of goes into what you were talking about. They're busy actively doing stuff. And there really is no need for a lot of these trivialities, especially if you're doing the work. It's more about doing the work.
Exactly. And part of doing the work is generosity. And taking action not only on your own behalf, but on behalf of other people that maybe can't speak for themselves. So I really feel like there's a sense of social justice and activism in this card.
I've never perceived it that way. I like it.
Thank you. Like, it depends on your spread and what you see. I mean, if any of the cards that actually are about social justice and balance come up with the Emperor, then I would say it's time to get involved. And it's time to use your voice for something more important than your own needs.
I really like that. I always took it as kind of just this typical thing of patriarchy and control in some way, but it's a lot more liberating looking at it, what it actually means versus kind of what my own perception of it is. And it's kind of healing to look at it through that lens, because the way that we perceive reality definitely impacts reality. And when I can switch that kind of archetype to this more impeccable person who is looking out for the greater good, that can definitely have an impact on my psyche and how I perceive the world at large.
Absolutely. And I also think that, like I mentioned earlier, this concept of patriarchy, and what dismantling it actually is, and a lot of this like divine feminine energy that every person on the planet is experiencing, is realizing that we're not smashing the patriarchy, we're healing it, and we heal it through love and compassion and understanding, and making space for everyone to share their feelings and to allow them to take up the space to have feelings.
That's a really good approach to it. And I think more people will shift to that. And I definitely think that is the solution, because trying to dismantle something or eradicate it completely is the opposite polarity of the same attitude. So it's counterintuitive.
Right. You're not going to fight fire with fire.
Mm-hmm.
You can resist in a peaceful way, and you can meet hate with love, and love wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very beautiful.
That is what I think about the Emperor.
Yeah, it's just all these small, simple concepts. No, that's definitely a very heavy card, and I like the way that you look at it. So moving into the fours, which four is your favorite?
I am so excited to talk about the fours. I have so many thoughts. Honestly, my favorite four is the Four of Pentacles.
Okay.
Because I feel like the Four of Pentacles has evolved so much and has a completely different meaning than what it had when the Rider-Waite-Smith was created in 1909.
So what do you perceive? What did it mean, and how do you perceive it now?
So, you have the figure who's sitting there with coins under his feet, one clutched close to the chest and one on top of the head. So that is like, I'm standing on my money and I'm not sharing it, and it's on the top of his head. So it's always something that they're thinking about. They're constantly thinking about their resources and keeping everything to themselves.
So to simplify that in like a hip hop lyric, it would be mind on your money and money on your mind.
Yeah. Definitely. So with the Moon Void Tarot, and I'll hold that up for you, you can see it's like a stack of journals and books and like a
altar.
Yeah, it's kind of like an altar. There's crystals, and there's a hidden box. It's closed. And then there's another box at the bottom with pentacles beneath it, and it's sitting on a desk inside. And what that means is our resources aren't just what is tangible in the physical sense of your money. I feel like our resources are the gifts that we come into this life with. So whether you're a writer or an artist or an engineer or a mother, like whatever the gifts that you have are, they're worth being protected, and they're protected not by holding them to yourself, but by setting up, going back to the Emperor and foundations and structure, boundaries. Mm-hmm. This is a card about, when it comes up, it's about healthy boundaries and feeling safe to open up and share your gifts. That's what I feel that the Four of Pentacles has evolved to.
I really like how you represented it in yours, kind of all of these like personal symbols of kind of wealth, and really it's about like self-investing and the value of your individuality and value of how you approach life is really what I get from it, and kind of the value of exploring yourself, because with all those journals there, that's definitely really about going in and kind of finding that inner treasure. So I think you did a beautiful job, first off explaining it, and then secondly, I like the way that you present it.
Thank you, Ross. I think that a lot of people are afraid to speak up and to share their gifts because there's this stigma that you need to have a degree or some kind of fancy formal training, or you need some kind of plaque up on your wall saying that you've completed said program in order for you to feel like your ideas and your feelings and your contributions are valid and important. And that's just not true. Everybody has their own path, and everybody has something really important to share with the collective. And that's what I think, kind of rounds out my feelings on this card.
Bringing it back to the Emperor real quick, and you talking about the Emperor being about action, it kind of also is, in order to harness the wealth of your gifts, you have to put them in action and really refine them. And that validation comes through action. Validation for all of that kind of stuff will come through utilizing those gifts and kind of safeguarding them by actively using them.
Right. That's a great addition. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Which card would you like to move on to next?
I'm between the Four of Cups and the Four of Wands. So we'll go with the Four of Cups.
That's my other favorite.
Really? For me, It looks like a spoiled dude. Like, he's like, I don't want this cup, man. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Well, it's interesting because on the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's, the hand coming out of the cloud, which is very much like the Ace of Cups, which is that new opportunity that we discussed before. Whether that's like, and it's cups, so it's water, it's emotions. So it's a new emotional experience, whether that's taking care of yourself and making sure that, like you said, water seeks its own level. And I think that the actionable step to be like the Emperor in this card is to take the steps of raising that level of your water. You see in the Moon Void Tarot, she's sitting there at a bar with 3 empty glasses stacked up, and she's kind of resting her head on her hand, and she's like looking at these cups like they didn't work, they didn't taste good, I didn't like it, it wasn't satisfying. And behind her there's a neon sign lit up with that ace.
I like that.
Thank you. She's focusing on the empty cups and missing the brand new cup right behind her. So I think that a lot of times we focus on the past and we look to the past to dictate our present, but the answers to your future aren't found in your past, because the things that happened in your past happened to you not to, crystallize your experience, but to get you to see that, that polar opposite of what you wanted, so you can gain clarity. I feel like that Ace of Cups is the clarity of what you really want to experience emotionally. So it's time for you to, put in the structure and the work to level yourself the fuck up. Sorry for swearing.
No, you're fine. I swear all the time on the podcast. Okay. It's all good.
Well, you're not gonna get an incredible relationship when you're crying about your past.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely comes down to, I actually talked about this on the interview that I did earlier, having to fail a lot in order to learn what you want in situations, and really kind of refining your vision through all of these failures and through sorting things out, making peace with it, and then moving forward and understand that you're not held to it.
Yes, that is the law of polarity. It is one of the universal laws that the universe, you ask for something you want, and the universe wants to give it to you. So first, they're going to just keep giving you stuff that you need to learn not to put up with and how to move on from, in order to clarify what it is that you actually do want and prepare you to receive it.
Yeah, it's kind of like rubbing away the rough points so you can get the more polished version of everything.
Correct.
Yeah, the way that I always put that, like, I perceive this card as this person really just not being receptive to this stuff, kind of like you had touched on. And like, not being open to their experience of anything and not wanting to take this gift. And it is like you said, like, honestly, now that I'm talking, like now that I hear myself talk, you did a very succinct way of explaining it very tangibly, and I don't think I can expand upon it without just reiterating what you said.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
The fours are my favorite. I really, actually, who am I kidding? They're all my favorites, but I really enjoy four energy. Because it's like when you're starting out in the aces and the twos and the threes, it's like you're kind of dipping your toes in the water and getting towards the things that you want. And then sometimes when you get what you want and you realize, oh shit, I actually don't want this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, okay, this is great. Like, how do I expand upon it?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that can be difficult is oftentimes we want things, but we don't think it out very clearly. And then when we finally do get what we want, it is, like you said, we might not want it anymore. And it's very important to kind of be clear in what you really would like to receive in life.
Right. And I think that that's also not to skip ahead, but what we're going to really discuss in next week's episode in the fives, because the fives are that, okay, well, that all didn't work. I thought I had, my idea of what I wanted, but now I really have to like let this shift gears and move forward. And sometimes that pushes us like right on our asses, but sometimes that's what we need.
I definitely think that's a crucial part of the process. And if people are avoiding that, they're avoiding the actual growth of everything.
We won't talk too much about that because we'll talk about that in the next episode. Do you want to talk about the Four of Swords next and save the wands for the end?
That's the one I have in my hand. So let's go for Four of Swords.
So how do you feel about the Four of Swords?
Looking at the card, that like I don't have any of the definitions traditionally memorized. I'm just going to say kind of taking a rest and getting to enjoy the color of life, because there's this sense of rest there, but then there's also the pretty stained glass window in the background. So it's kind of getting this clarity of thought through pausing and really getting to look at things. And this is kind of a tangent real quick, but it ties into this, my perception of it directly, and you can rein me back in if I'm wrong. Have you heard of the concept of practicing solitude?
Absolutely.
I just was turned on to that. I've been listening to this, it's irrelevant actually, but I was just turned on to the concept of it. And it was suggested to take an hour of solitude a day. And for me, like as somebody who struggled with anxiety, that's a long time to take. So I took 15 minutes yesterday and I just set a timer on my phone, shut the phone off, and just sat out in nature on this pretty day. And it was like the best 15 minutes of my life in a sense, because I like really just stopped, watched the water flow, like listen to these birds chirping, saw all these little bubbles. Like I noticed so much stuff that like, in being so goal oriented and focused on things, I missed the subtleties of. And it was really like this Four of Swords moment where I was like, holy shit, there's this whole expansive world that I'm missing out on by not taking time to like let my mind rest.
I think that's really beautifully said, and that's a wonderful way to embody this card. I believe that a lot of people, like you said, are very uncomfortable with their own minds and being in, like you said, in solitude with their own minds. Typically when we have time alone, we're on our phones, we're on our computers, we're scrolling through something, we're listening to music, we're, dicking around in our rooms. Like there's not a ton of time unless you have like a meditation practice where you can just go and give your mind a rest and be alone with your own thoughts and not being afraid of it. I think that's a wonderful way to look at that card. On the Moon Void Tarot, you've got, she's laying in bed and she has 3 swords above her and she's holding one close to her. And so it's a little bit different from yours, even though I like your interpretation. maybe better than mine, and I want to start incorporating that because it sounds a lot more positive than my interpretation, which was, you've got the three swords above her head are her swirling thoughts that she's trying to like lay to rest, and the one sword she's not letting go of. So it's like, I'm trying to be Zen, but I'm having a lot of trouble building that structure around calming my mind.
I like that. Yeah. One of the funny things, this is just like kind of my perception of Zen real quick, just since you brought it up. But the funny thing is you would have the Zen if you weren't trying to achieve it, if you just held on to the thought and you weren't trying to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Then you would be in the, yeah.
Which is maybe because I'm a fire sign, it's like I'm constantly like moving really fast, and like quieting my mind is difficult for me. Typically I have to do it through journaling, or like you said, going out and taking a walk and just putting my phone away and like moving my body like by walking, but then just like noticing and finding peace in that stillness.
That's the thing that was really weird for me about the solitude practice. I meditate like at least 10 minutes every morning when I go to the gym. But for me, like sitting there for 15 minutes with my eyes open and like being out, I was like, I should be doing something. This is weird. What does this guy walking by me think? I'm fucking weird just sitting here like a fucking weirdo on a bench. And it's just like, no, dude, people do this all the time. You're weird because you're like making it a big deal. It was just super funny. I really like the way that you presented your card, and it's interesting to see how it's a different meaning, but it's the same general concept of it.
Right.
I shouldn't say same, how it's the same premise represented differently. And it is kind of the polarity of it too, though, because in one, it's like the stillness is comforting and there's this beauty, and the other one is kind of like the exact opposite of stillness, and this hyper focus is creating the dissatisfaction, I guess is the word I would use.
That's a good word for it. Yeah, I feel like I think the fours are actually kind of confrontational. And maybe we'll save that but I don't want to forget for the bullet points. But in the Four of Cups, you're being confronted with an opportunity to change and grow. But before you can take that action, you kind of have to set your own parameters of stability. Similarly with the boundaries in the Four of Pentacles, and structuring your relationship with your thoughts, and the ways you go about quieting your mind in the Four of Swords.
Yeah, it's really interesting looking at like how you just presented it. It kind of, this is just my little tangent I'm going to go on now, according to this. So it's like you have the stability that you've established in the Four of Pentacles. You're learning kind of how to integrate that in the Four of Cups. And then like with the stillness of mind, you step into kind of the Emperor position. And then in the Four of Wands, you kind of get the reward of all of that work, is how it seems to transpire, correct?
That's fantastic. Yes, great tangent. The Four of Wands, when you get that card, it's always like the celebration card, or like the have a party, and it's got the two figures under the huppah and like the bright yellow around it, so it's like has a lot of happiness. And sometimes I think about, I don't really see it that way, where I'm not like telling the person like, have a party, go out and celebrate. Like I look at it and I'm like, okay, this is the structure of fire. How do you calm that? How do you control fire? How do you build structure and wield it in such a way that it doesn't burn you up and everybody else?
I guess it would go back to kind of the boundaries and everything else that we had talked about. It's kind of like having that fire pit and then having water to put it out if you need to.
That's one way of looking at it for sure. In my card, I have two people that are embracing on a picnic blanket underneath two trees.
Oh, that's really pretty.
Thank you. it's not like a high energy card. I feel like the structure of fire is almost learning how to calm yourself, and so that you can enjoy the small moments in life that are worth celebrating, such as being outside on a picnic blanket, just, existing and breathing with somebody that you care about, that you feel comfortable with and confident with.
Yeah, so it's kind of like structuring the logs so they're stacked upon each other, so it's kind of like a slow burn, or it just keeps it going rather than kind of having all of this open air in there to where it creates this raging fire.
Right. There's time for passionate outbursts, and there are times to rein it in and say, okay, I know that I'm feeling like really intensely, but I want to take action in ways that honor my truth and don't burn me out or burn the other person out.
Damn, that was just like 20 years of relationship counseling in one sentence to me. You just changed my paradigm with that statement.
You're welcome. No, that's awesome. That's why I love the fours. I made this deck when I was going through some big shifts in relationships myself. I had just gotten divorced, and I was back in the dating realm, and you're afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to open up to people because you're afraid of getting hurt. But then you have to realize that energy nobody else is going to open you up. Nobody's going to take the key and unlock you with their love. You're going to get back those same people that are also emotionally unavailable.
I don't want to talk about it now. I'm just joking. No, it definitely makes sense. It goes back to kind of the water seeks its own level premise, really. Again, you get what you put out, honestly. One of the cool things about the Four of Wands that really comes up to me, too, is the yellow in it, which is navel chakra, which is kind of sense of self. And is through kind of creating this happy time through all of the effort of the other fours, you kind of get this celebration. And again, it's like the celebration of you and your accomplishment more so than it is of party. And by the way, when you first said party, I was thinking of, like, for whatever reason, the B-52s came into my head. They were having a party. Like, I don't know why it was like that in my mind, but yeah, it's like creating this new sense of self and creating this sense of accomplishment from the foundation of learning how to temper, like, body, mind, and soul or emotions.
Right. Definitely. I think that also a lot of times, because it has that connotation and that reputation of being like a party card and a celebration, sometimes that we think we can't give ourselves any congratulations if we're doing something that's not big. And because it's a 4, it's a small number. It's like reminder to give yourself credit and celebrate the small wins.
That's a really good point. And any kind of big goal is made up of like a million small wins. And I think that's super important to remember. I was actually going to touch on something else that's very small in there. Kind of the little sprigs on the wands. This isn't something that we had touched on when the wands have come up yet, but those are like little signs of new growth kind of. And It is this like creative new growth spurting from the results of everything. And then even that, like, those little growths, tying back to what you said, those little growths kind of grow into these big things. So it's a very beautiful card. And wands have so much power.
Yes, that was wonderful. I really love that you mentioned that. I love too that, like, we're talking about the 4 of Wands, and today is May 1st. And for all my witches out there, like, happy Beltane. It's the midpoint between kind of winter and summer.
What is the
fertility celebration?
This will be released later, but I do have a question. What is like a good type of spell or intention to set For now, I know you said fertility, so it's like setting the intention of new beginnings.
Yes.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I forgot we released it. I'm sorry, you can edit that out.
No, it's fine. We'll leave it on.
I just got so excited because yeah, everything's starting to blossom. You know, where we are, we're up north, so the winter is finally like leaving and it's getting warmer, and all the cherry blossoms are in like full bloom right now, and New York is so beautiful. Everything's like pink and green, and
Yeah, we're starting to get a lot of blossoms here too, and just the smell of kind of like all these flowers opening up and like the freshness of everything. But there's still that spring crispness. And honestly, it's cool to talk about this too, because we're planting the seed for this now, but it's going to bloom later on, like in the episode. So then people, because it'll be a couple weeks out, they can kind of remember that Beltane beginning of spring feeling when they hear it. It'll take them back to a really cool place.
yeah. Oh, not to jump subjects on you, but I don't want to forget too, to talk about that the Emperor is associated with Aries.
What is Aries all about?
So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and it is all about taking action. You know, basically, Aries is the one that does everything first, and then the rest of the world just watches how Aries did it. You know?
Okay, he's like the follow my lead type guy.
Exactly.
Or gal.
Yep, the follow my lead person.
There you go.
Yeah, you can see that on the Rider-Waite-Smith, there's ram heads on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
And Aries is definitely about taking action.
This is just something I noticed too, and this, I'm sure other people have noticed this right away. So it's the 4, and there's the 4 ram's heads on there. Mm-hmm. So it kind of goes into the fact that those 4 different ram's heads, being the 4 elements of the minors or the pips or whatever, are what constitute or I don't know. They make up the Emperor. I'm trying to use big words beyond my pay grade.
Good job. Good effort.
Thank you. A for effort.
A for effort. No, so when you get the Emperor, it's definitely worth it to try something and to put your efforts into it. A little bit different than the Fool, as the Fool takes the leap into the unknown, but I think the Emperor really kind of takes into consideration and makes calculated moves, but isn't afraid to go for it.
Yeah.
It's like take the risk and be courageous. And also leadership.
Yeah, I think the leadership really is kind of made up of all these the elements of the minors too, where it is this kind of sense of seeing the value in self, really being able to see the bigger picture through rest, having really processed your emotions, and knowing how to celebrate yourself in kind of a growth way, a growth-minded way. Yeah, I like it. I like it. So real quick, I feel like we've covered everything. Do you want to hit the bullet points, or is there anything else you want to add before we recap for everybody listening?
No, Ross, I think we really, hit the mark on each one and explained it in really simple ways that I think everybody will understand. And obviously, please reach out to us if you feel like we've missed anything, or you have anything to add, or you want to argue.
Yeah, please do. And I'll put the links in the show notes, and I'll spell Stefanie's name right for her Instagram account this time. Shenanigans. But yeah, you can reach out to us via Instagram. Links will be below, or staff at spiritualphoenixstudios.com, or potentially moonvoidtarot.com as well. I'm sure Stefanie has contact on there. Or if you just want to buy this deck that we were talking about so much, you should definitely do that. The art is very beautiful on it, and she's put a lot of effort into it, and it definitely shows. So the bullet points. What would you reduce the Emperor to?
The Emperor is about taking action. It's about tapping into divine masculine energy, taking care of yourself and others, being a leader, being courageous, building solid structures and foundations,
Hmm. I like it. Then we talked about the Four of Pentacles first, right?
Yes.
What are your bullet points for the Four of Pentacles?
I believe that it is taking stock in your gifts and setting proper boundaries around sharing yourself and sharing those gifts. It's about our physical resources, but our physical resources are also the things that, like I said before, I mentioned our gifts. Whatever makes you special is a resource of yours. So be careful and protect yourself.
Those are definitely good words of wisdom, especially the more people develop themselves, to really be mindful of how they invest their energy. Bullet points for the Four of Cups.
The Four of Cups, I would say, is building that structure around where you are at emotionally, so that new opportunities that are fulfilling can come in and that you're available to accept and receive them. Letting go of the past.
All right, and then we will transition to Four of Swords.
Will you do that one? Because I liked your description better.
Yeah, I definitely will. Kind of stopping and taking a moment of rest and really getting to look at the world and see the beauty in everything. And there's going to be a small optional homework assignment to this. Have your own Four of Swords moment by going out and giving yourself 5, 10, 15 minutes of solitude. Set it on a timer, put your phone in airplane mode, and just sit there and watch the world kind of unfold before your eyes, and tell me if you don't have a different perception of it and if you don't really begin to enjoy that, because it'll change your life. Is that okay?
I love it. That was perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me for that. And then the Four of Wands, what does that mean to you?
It's celebrating the small moments and setting up the structure of your fire so that you aren't burning out of control.
Yeah, that's good life advice. I'm taking all of this like a therapy lesson.
That's kind of what that's what tarot feels like to me. It feels like spiritual therapy.
I definitely agree. That's really how I got into all of it, was under that subheading, and then I found that there was so much more to it.
Yes, I agree.
So I think that we nailed it on this. Thank you so much for taking the time to go through everything. I really appreciate you coming on. What can we expect next week?
Thank you so much, Ross, always, for having me. I love doing this podcast with you and talking about the tarot. It's, obviously something we're both very passionate about. And like you said before, I feel like it's a teaching opportunity because we're sharing it with listeners, but I feel like I get to learn something as well. So I really appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And next week, we are going to be talking about the Hierophant and the Fives. And this is a card that I feel like can confuse a lot of people, or they're disinterested in it. It's like not a very exciting card.
I had that understanding of it too, and I read a book by a local author, and his basic premise, this is kind of just like a snapshot of what my understanding is, and we can expand upon it more next episode, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's like the doctor of the soul in some way. Like this. Yeah. What are some little teasers you have for it?
Like I said earlier, if you follow numerology, fives are they're kind of like mini wheels. It's change, and change can rock us, or we can rise to the occasion and use that as like a catalyst to really propel us forward. So we're going to talk about that and how that relates to the Hierophant.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Stefanie. Thank you, listeners, as well. Real quick, just a reminder, reach out to us. We'd love to have your questions, comments, and incorporate them into the episodes. And we will touch back on questions that you have for earlier ones if you reach out and let us know what you want. Even if you tell me that I'm annoying and I talk too much, it'll be okay. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening. If you love this show, one kind review goes a long way. If you have a question or comment you'd like read on air, please send your email to staff@spiritualphoenixstudios.com or use the link in the show notes.